All right, welcome to episode 176 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, where your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out over at hpoutdoors.com. You can find our podcast on any quality podcast directory out there, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the good ones. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you are on Facebook, you can head over to our listeners group, and you can talk with like-minded hunters like myself and my co-host Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up, man?
Not too much. Living the life. Excited about our convo tonight.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah, tonight we're fired up to have a special guest with us. We got two-time World Goose Calling Champion and no stranger to the show, Kyle Jones, joining us. Kyle, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot, man. Just living the quarantine life, hanging out, trying to turkey hunt every possible chance I can, and just hang in there. How are you guys?
Good, man. I was gonna say you've definitely thinned the population a little bit here lately.
Yeah, it's been a whole lot better than last year. That's for sure. Last year was, a lot of water around. It made it pretty hard to get access to a couple different areas, and then this year I kind of hit the road probably 3 times harder with scouting and making sure permission was done and all that stuff, and access was granted. So it was worked out so far.
Cool.
So have you just been hunting around your house, like around the home state, or where have you been?
Well, so for the youth hunt in Kentucky, I live in the very, very far western Kentucky. So like you go southern tip of Illinois, I'm 5 minutes from Illinois. So I live in Paducah, Kentucky, and for the youth hunt, I hunted within 30 minutes of Paducah. And then I've gone to Tennessee. I can shoot 4 turkeys in Tennessee, but I've shot 2 there. And then I've gone to central Kentucky for the opener this past weekend, and I got you can shoot 2 turkeys in Kentucky, and I was tagged out. So it's been pretty crazy, pretty hectic, and very fortunate to be on the shooting end of the gun there. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
So
it's a nice break, man. Nice break from the
making
corona.
diaphragm calls?
I don't make the diaphragm calls, but I mean the company that I work for, Power Calls, so we offer a diaphragm. A bunch of different diaphragms. We've got a young guy named Bo Brooks. He's from Washington State, and he is wicked on a turkey call, duck call, goose call, and he makes every single diaphragm by hand, and he does a really, really great job.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, I think turkey season's kind of hitting at the right time this year to give everybody a little reprieve and a little feel good to get back outside and doing stuff outdoors. But, this week we wanted to have you on the show. We're doing this new setup where we're going live in our Facebook group right now, where folks can go in there. And if you're a member of the group, you can get into our chat and you can ask questions of you. And this week we are obviously going to focus on goose calling tips, techniques, all the kind of stuff. Dan put up a post on Instagram a couple days ago and said, hey, what do you want to improve on and things like that this off season? And goose calling was like 90% of the answers. So we were like, well, we know a guy. So we hit you up, and you're cool enough to come back on the show. So we're pumped to have you, and hopefully we get some good interactions from them. But, and another thing we're hoping that this does is a lot of times we'll have podcasts with guys like you, and we'll get questions after the fact. And I think maybe sometimes people are hesitant to reach out to you directly for questions and things like that on social. So maybe we're hoping that this will be a little, better conduit and better environment for people if they want to chime in with something. And then, we can talk through it. And, we did something similar several years ago. I would say now, Dan, I can't remember exactly, but when we had Trevor Shanahan on with us, and he did some stuff, and that was a really popular episode. Guys really liked hearing that kind of deep dive under the calling stuff. So I'm looking forward to this chat with you, and hopefully all of our internets, stay up and everybody stays good. So I think Dan might have a few more pixels this week. Little adjustment made. So pretty fired up about that. And I think I'm actually going to let Dan kick it off because I'm pumped that he's not pixelated right now, and I know he's got a really good question that he wanted to kind of hit with you to kind of get things started.
Yeah, y'all can see my face this week, I think, or I'm at least not in a very deep fishbowl if I'm in a fishbowl. So, a couple questions right off the bat, Kyle, before we get into maybe some actual calling techniques. But I want to ask: is it hard to not competition call while you're hunting?
Now, yes, but whenever I was first starting, 14, I started waterfowl hunting. 15, I was jumping into competition calling. And so whenever I was, 15, 16, 17, even 18, it was always, 100 miles per hour, because I was just like, man, I'm great at calling, and I can just go do whatever. I can sound like a bunch of different geese. Well, I wasn't reading, and I didn't know how to read geese because I'd only been hunting for just a few short years. And then before jumping into knowing how to call proficiently, it was just like there was no time to learn that before, you know what I'm saying? So it's when I was younger, yes, it was a lot of just going ham out in the field versus actually knowing what to say and when to say it. Now it's been, through getting my butt kicked by geese, it's been a learning process, and I've actually taken the time to learn reading geese properly and learning from different people too. So it's been a process, but man, it was a slow start at first for sure.
So I think one of the things that is common, and I mean, this happens to a lot of people, and I've been in this same situation is, I see guys like you or like the Hudnalls are another good example. You're at a show or something like that, and I'd love to just come up and pick your brain and, talk to you about calling and all this stuff. And I finally work up the guts to do it. And I get up there and I sound like this. Can you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that?
No, I didn't hear it.
Nope.
Well, I don't know if that actually works. It's a bike horn, but essentially, what I'm kind of going with this is, how do you deal with, a guy clearly nervous, he's getting started, he's trying to figure out what's going on, and he comes up to you at a show and he sounds like he's on a kazoo or something, like, you're at ground zero, right? You're like, all right, like what do you do at the time? Because they think, I'm talking to Kyle Jones, man, he's going to get me squared away like right now. Like what kind of stuff do you offer to a guy like that who's literally at the ground level and you're just trying to keep some confidence to like not throw your call in the trash?
Oh man, that's it's happened a lot, but man, it's nothing. Like, you can tell by, you can talk to Field and a lot of other guys that, we've seen it and we've heard it, but at the same time, we all were there, so it's very, very easy to relate to that guy that's calling like that. Cause I was, we all sounded like that at one point. So I think the biggest thing is to, not, laugh. You can't, I look at every single opportunity to help somebody as, a way to just to be all around good person and just help them out. But if I can tell that they're nervous and, really, really, really hesitant, like there's a couple times where guys will walk by the booth a couple times and they're looking at calls and they look at you and then they keep looking at calls and they walk by, and it happens. It's 3 or 4 times. Yep. I'll ask them, hey man, you want to try a call real quick? And they're like, oh no, dude. And I immediately tell them, you're not going to know what kind of call you want until you try it, because every single person a call fits different people. Every single person, it fits everybody differently. So, and that kind of piques their interest, and they're like, oh, that you're right. And as soon as they start calling, I'll kind of like really, really listen to their mechanics and really their hand positions or anything like that. If they're puffing out their cheeks, I really pay close attention to that. So I like really analyze closely. And if they're still nervous, I actually try to, take them over to the side, so that way they're not standing in front of a bunch of different people. Because then, you get one guy blowing a call up there, and then you get 30 other guys that are sitting there, looking at them. So, and then once they realize everybody's looking at them, they're like, oh crap, so then they're like, oh no, that's good. I'll take it. Or I don't think it fits me. And then I offer, like, man, we can really, any one of us up here at this counter can tune that call to fit you and to fit you perfectly. So that way, whether you want to stay the same and sound the same, which is fine, because every single person, they all have different goals and hunting and, hunting goals, but, we can tune it to stay the same, or we can tune it to help you improve. And then we can help you improve here by having hands-on instruction. So, I mean, I just, for the guys that are really, really nervous, like you living in Pennsylvania, you have the Sportsman Show or that big expo, right? It's the best place to pick up a call. You're going to have help from the HUD. You're going to have help from Field. He's a two-time world champion goose caller, and I've watched Field many times tune a goose call for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, trying to get this one call, this piece of plastic or wood, tuned specifically for one guy. And it's like, man, that's the best place to do it. So I'd encourage everybody to just try and go and to really just walk up there, give it a rip, no matter the skill level, and get after it.
I think majority of people are scared to take that step. They'll go up and look at it and put it back down and kind of go on with their day. Seems like most of the time anyways. But anyway, moving on, going back to, piggybacking off that question that I asked before, how do you approach different flyways with your calling?
Well, all of us, we have Atlantic, Mississippi, Central, Pacific. I think the first thing and most importantly is to realize, the type of field you're going to be hunting, and then B, the subspecies that you're going to be hunting, because you're going to get into the Central Flyway where you're going to be hunting. I mean, you guys have hunted with Ben in Kansas. Is you're going to be dealing with a lot of your Hutchinson style Canada geese. So your situational calling there is going to be extremely fast, extremely loud, and kind of just creating, whenever you plug in the TV and you just have that noise, right? That's you're trying to create chaos with those, the Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas birds. You're trying to just call as fast and as loud as possible. Hopefully, you've got some lungs that are air compressors by then, because it is. I mean, you could be calling from as far as you can see them till they're landing in the decoys, and then you look at your cackle. There's going to be, situations of where you want to have your cackler call tuned up, and you're going to you're going to cluck a few times, and you're going to be hunting the edge or anything like that. But then you look at Mississippi or the Atlantic Flyway, then you're talking bigger geese, honkers, or even the upper, Central Flyway. You're going to have where you're not going to be calling nearly as much as you should, or not as you should, but nearly as much as guys think, So I think just knowing the subspecies that you're going to be hunting, and then whether you're hunting, your X fields, your traffic, low ponds, etc. I think it's all understanding what species of geese and the styles, I guess, that are offered out there.
Yeah,
I remember one of the first times that we hunted with Ben, and we had, one group of lessers going this way and another group coming on top of them like this, and I'm just going at it, calling as much as I could, and before I know it, like I was getting dizzy. I think I was out, like I'm all frozen up, but now I'm caught up. Crazy. Anyway, like you said, that intense calling it's a lot different than what I'd ever seen out here on the Atlantic Flyway.
Oh yeah, no, I've been, I've hunted Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and when I hunted in Kansas, I was actually hunting farther east, so we were hunting big honkers, and then you go west, and it's like you want to start calling at those geese all the way out there, like there's no way, and you start calling, and then more guys start pitching in, and you get the whole teamwork going through, and they're just creating all this racket, and all of a sudden those geese are just getting closer and closer and closer, and you're just like, holy crap, like hold on, because it's going to happen, or it's either going to happen or it's not. But it's unbelievable at some of the situations out there and out west. It's crazy.
So one question that I had, and you actually just I've been thinking about this question because I've seen this come up a lot, and I was looking through your Instagram feed before we got on here, and I saw that you actually just posted a video about this recently. But if you would touch on tuning a call, and you mentioned it, you can do it specific for people, but like I've seen so many times people posting like, "Hey, I messed around with my call and now I can't get it back to where I like it," or whatever. Maybe just get like, any tips that you might have, for helping guys who want to try to play a little bit. Like maybe they're getting to the point where they understand like, hey, I'd like to maybe work this a little bit, but they try it and it doesn't work. Help them get it back to where they were. You have any tips on, because I know you guys obviously tune a ton of calls, things that you find that are helpful, for guys getting into that.
For sure. First, Ben, what's up, Ben? He's on this side. So the biggest thing that I can recommend to guys is, before if you buy a call, you like how it's tuned, always take like a Sharpie. I got one right here, and just like, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, need to go this way.
Right there.
Right. So I'll take a Sharpie and run it right across that top of that wedge there, so that way I know exactly. Let me see here. Oh gosh, this is.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
So that will help with guys that are, you just got that call from, somewhere, and you like how it's tuned. It's important to know exactly where that call is. So that way, in case you're running after geese, I've done it where your call gets bumped or dropped. Somebody drops your lanyard, and your guts fall loose or fall out completely. It's easy to take that and have a great starting point to where your goose call was tuned how you like it. The biggest thing that I really, a lot of guys will just completely pull their call apart. I'll just do it right here, and they'll send it back. Like I'll get guys that send in calls that are just like, man, I was trying to tune it and just didn't sound right, and they'll send in, their call be looking like that, which it happens. I mean, I know it's an instrument, but the biggest thing is. There's a couple rules here. Is the more read you show, the deeper and more air that reed's going to take to vibrate and move. So, and then you always want to have your reed fall into. Let me see if I can get it right. Oh gosh, there's a little tone channel. It's harder to see because these guts are clear, but there's a little tone channel that reed will actually fall into, and you want to have that reed falling into that tone channel as close to the edge as possible without actually hitting the tone channel. And that's like your number one place to start, is making sure you're sliding that reed and the guts and the wedge into the call, and making sure that that reed is not clicking anything. You can put it next to your ear and hear, is it sticking? That's you'll be able to make half a note and it's gonna hang up and stick. And then that's like your starting points. And then you see this. Let me get it right here. There we go. It's opposite. It's like backing up a bow. So you got your wedge here, right? So the further I push that wedge into that insert, the fuller the sound, the goose call is going to be sound-wise, all right? But that reed doesn't slide, or it slides into that tone channel, but at the same time, you can use that line that you'd made as a reference point. So obviously that call is going to be a lot deeper, right? Because you're showing more reed, and it's going to be full sounding, but it's going to be a lot deeper. It's going to be heavier to blow for those guys. So what you're going to just do is you can back that tone channel out. I try not to push through, but sometimes you just have to. And what I mean by push through is, if you have it set up here, you just push through, straight through. I try not to do that because it's moving parts. They're going to wear out at some point. But here, I'll show you. Hope I'm not going too fast. So here, oh gosh.
Yep.
So you got your reed, your tone channel, everything, your reed's falling in. That tone channel. One second here. Now your wedge is lined up with that marker, and you just stick it right back into that insert there. Make sure you push in everything nice and full sounding. Now here you can hear that click. That's what I'm talking about with sliding into the tone channel. That's what you don't want. So you're going to need to back that out just a little bit to where it doesn't make that noise anymore. So, it's about where it needed to be before I took it all apart. And then you can give it a couple licks and it'll probably be good. But that's crash course call tuning. But man, like
real quick, let me ask you something. I can remember back not so long ago that everyone was talking about shaved reeds, and people were like shaving more and shaving less, and there was like a science to it, right? And now it seems like, you got broken guts, you're talking bent tip reeds being more common. For people who don't know what that is, or just could you give a little basics on like how the bent tip reed sort of came to be, and kind of what the state of the union is now on reed thickness and all that stuff?
Yeah. So, most your goose call reeds start out at about a 14 thousandths thickness of mylar. A full reed I recommend for guys that are contest calling, because you're getting more snap and pop out of the reed, and you're getting prolonged life out of the reed. For guys that are, that are just hunting and everything like that, a shaved reed is going to be a little bit easier to run, because it's, taking a little bit less air. You're shaving that off. It's going to be less, it's going to be a thinner reed. So it's going to take less air to vibrate. But at the same time, with a shaved reed, you can get a lot more realistic and live sounding. Like a guy that shaves his reeds, not a lot, but he has really, really good live sound, is like Sean Hammock. And he sounds just like live geese because he does a great job shaving his reeds. He's got a good combination with guts, and it just sounds overall great. You can get a lower bottom end out of the goose call whenever you start shaving more off that reed as well. So there's pros and cons to each. For a hunting aspect, I'm going to run a shaved reed because it's going to sound like more realistic geese, and it's going to sound, it's just going to be easier overall for me to run. And then with the contest, I want my reed to last as long as it can, but I also want pop power. And so, it's just one is going to outweigh the other there. But I like shade reed for hunting situations.
So do you use the same call for hunting and contest calling?
I use the same style call. I do not use the same style, tuned system. With hunting, I like, honestly, I kind of like a little bit flatter sounding call, just because it sounds, more like a deep bass goose. And I can do a little bit more low end, quiet end stuff on the bottom. That sounds just more realistic, more one goose talking versus multiple different geese.
And then I have to ask, do you tune your hunt or tune your call to the specific hunt that you're doing? If you're doing lesser hunt or, a honker hunt, are you changing sounds there too?
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I'd probably, if I were going to go, say I were going to go hunt with Ben, or somebody in Oklahoma, Texas, I'm going to grab a shorter call, a little bit more bored out, because you're getting faster read response. You're getting, because you need to be faster on a call out there, and you need to be louder as well. So I'm going to get a shorter call, a little bit more open bore on that insert, so that way I'm able to just be as loud and fast as I need to be. And then with Mississippi flyway, Atlantic flyway, northern central flyway, big honkers, I'm going to try to go back to your golf course goose sound.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, we've got quite a few people here watching live, and we're hoping that they'll start chiming in with some questions for you here soon. We got a lot of the standard cast of characters in there cutting up and poking fun at everybody, but hopefully we'll get some calls. I'm sure they're going to send all kinds of hate my way now. But I think one of the questions that I always have and I always come back to is, a lot of people, one of their first experiences in calling and learning to call is through bad grammar. That's a very popular, well-known thing that people have used. And Scott talked a lot about hands in that video, and, a $200 call and a $2 hands, you got a $2 call kind of thing. Do you have any kind of hand tips that you could offer that aren't like in the deep end of the pool, but just sort of like hey, you're hunting, your hands are cold, like whatever, do these little tips that can probably help you get a little better sound or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's different hand positions for situations, but there's also different hand positions for all the notes and note variations that you want to do. Obviously, with your double clucks, you want, for that low cluck, you want to bring in that hand, as much as you can, as much as your call will let you. But then as you get that high cluck in there, you open up that hand. It's not wide open, right? It's not like blowing out a duck call. It's just these. Hold on, I still got to figure out this little camera deal here. So
just put it right in front of your face.
Dude, you know the kind of guy I'm at a boat ramp. That's why I don't back up the boat. So here you go. So here you like right here, up and down, man. That's it. You don't need to go all wide open. I mean, that's just gonna, honestly, it just makes it to where it doesn't sound very, very great in my opinion. But also, then at the end of the day, I'm also nitpicky when it comes to notes. I know when I mess up and everything like that. But low cluck, you just want to be, closed up. You don't want to be completely shut out because you're going to choke out your goose call. But with a double cluck, it's like just barely open them hands up, and then whenever you hit that high cluck, just open them up barely. And that's with every note. That's a quick spit. Any type of note variation that you want to do, man, is it's that right there. That's all it is. There's times where you want to be, with some notes, you're going to be putting your finger inside the insert there just a little bit to choke it off completely, but to get like very, very detailed technique technique style notes, but just here and here. That's it. That's all. That's all the variation is right there. What I can say is, for guys that are really trying to get better with note variation, is working more so not on hands, because everybody once they watch Bad Grammar, because Scott really hits home with explaining hand position and hand technique on notes, is working on voice inflection to work on different note variation, so that high cluck you want high pitched voice inflection, low cluck you want low pitched voice inflection, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just that you can really hit home on later. But man, like going back to your original question, sorry, I kind of got off on a little tangent there, but it's just double high cluck, low cluck is there. Say you're hunting like where, I'm sure that you guys are faced with it in the eastern half of the United States, is you're getting smaller, more closed off sections of ag land, or even like low ponds, pasture ponds, stuff like that. A lot of times, going and calling like this is going to be a lot of times too loud for those Canada geese in that area. I had it happen when I lived in Michigan. We had some really tight areas that we had geese in, and the only way you learn from that is obviously by trial and error. But coming around and cupping it here, right? You're not forcing that volume directly out in front of you. You're pulling it all in to where you're muffling that call immensely, and it allows you not to be as loud or as vocal to Canada geese.
I think that's a huge difference from where we're at and, the Central Flyway. Like we have these small, 40-acre fields, and they're surrounded by trees. And if you hit that real hot, you're gonna shove them out. So that I really like that tip, covering up. And I probably move my hands too much, I think, as far as opening the pinky up instead of just the ring finger and middle finger there. But it is what it is, I guess.
No, man, and it's trial and error. The only thing I can recommend to guys is really just trying to master that. Understanding the functions of your call. Because some guys might not know to flip around their hands, and the first thing you do is they come around and they're just like completely choke it off completely, to where you can't even make a sound out of the use call. So learning, how it operates and how it operates with different hand positions is huge.
Yeah, no doubt. I think everyone's a little guilty of that, Dan, especially getting started. I mean, you just want to be that, you just feel like that's the right thing to do, early on. But, to your point, Kyle, I've found myself hunting loaf ponds, especially that have treed shorelines, and really having to choke it off because the echo gets so bad right in there. So I think that's a really great point. And I think we got a good question here that I want to bring on and get your thoughts on. Let me see if I can make this work. Yeah. So Nate asks, when is it too much? So basically, like, what kind of reaction are you looking to see out of birds? What are you doing that shows you time to get quiet, or what are you doing when you're saying they're digging this, time to keep on or push harder or whatever?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually. And I myself, I'm very, very, very reserved when it comes to calling. I'm trying to call as little as possible at anything. So I think it's all in the body language of those geese. Like, obviously, if you're sitting there calling and they haven't skipped a wing beat, or they haven't even started, if they're just coasting, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, if that's working, I've been there in a situation where they're coasting, and I'm calling, and I keep calling, and they keep, they just zone in, and they're in on it. And then I've been in situations where I'm locked up. These geese are locked up from 200 yards away. They get to about 100, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my gun ready, and I put my call down, and all of a sudden you just start to see them lift a little bit, and just start to skirt outside the decoy spread. And they're like, okay, what was going on there that made those geese stop? Geese are extremely aggressive. Big Canada geese are extremely aggressive, in obviously in certain situations, but they're not asking to come hang out. You know what I'm saying? So I keep that in mind as I'm trying to communicate with these geese, is like, okay, if they're eating up that aggressive calling, then these Canadas are in, some type of mood that they're wanting to just come in for a fight. They're ready to come in and land with these geese, and that's my spot to hang out. That's my spot to eat or swim, right? But if they're starting to like skirt off, say you're just hitting them with a double cluck, look, 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 and they start to like skirt off the way, man, that was too much. So that body language there, it's a split second that you'll be able to tell what's going, and it's really, really hard to explain on live chat. But I mean, it's just really that there's just a few split seconds where you're just going to be, it's very, very precise. I try to tell guys, you don't think of your Canada calling. Obviously, going back, every situation is different, but I try to think of Canada calling as Mike Tyson fights. He knows when to punch, and he knows that punch is going to pack some power, right? Versus being out there and just being background noise, and just throwing jabs the whole time. So that's just, I mean, in a roundabout way, that's just kind of my philosophy on it.
No, there's I like that. And when you're talking about like watching geese, how much are you, let's say if you're in the layout blind, how much are you showing yourself as far as eyes? How are you watching the birds? Are you letting yourself come out of the blind just a little bit? And how do you make sure that you're still hidden? I feel like a lot of people, they might just tuck down so low and then they can't even see the birds that they're trying to call to.
Yeah, that is there's blind, like layout blinds that I like hunting out of for Canada's was the old ground forces, because they had the mesh, a little bit further opening in the mesh to be able to see through, and the mesh was really, really flimsy. So I mean, it was easy to sit there and turn. I usually never hunt with a hat on because I'm sitting trying to look and turn, but I'll push myself all the way down in the blind to where, I can. There's been times where I'm on my stomach, watching these birds move behind me. And that's what, there's all different kinds of blinds to hunt out of nowadays. But whenever I started and learning how to read those geese, it was hunting out of a ground force, and I'm sitting there I'll hold that mesh with one hand and call with the other, or not call, and sit there and hold it and push it up as much as I possibly can to really keep a visual on those geese. Because I mean, if I don't have a visual on the geese, I try not to call, because I don't know what their body language is saying, So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to have constant eyes the whole time. I mean, if they're coming in and they're just bowed up, locked up, I can probably get away with not looking, but more often than not, man, I'm really trying to spin around. And when I hunted with McCormick, he's the same way. Like, he's flipping around in the blind. I hear scuffling going on, and I'm like, dude, what do you? Is there something what's going on over there? And he's like, dude, I'm just watching these geese. And sure enough, man, you can twist yourself around It's hard to do, and a little bit harder to do in a layout blind. But man, you can get away with a lot if you obviously take the time to hide. But really, just trying to keep visual of them all the time is huge.
I feel like Josh moves around like that, but only when there's a spider in his blind.
Whatever.
But I tell you what, that is a pro tip though. I mean, your hat's always hitting your mesh, right? And that's to just take it off and duck under there when they're coming in. I mean, that's pretty solid advice.
You'll come up looking like that, coming to shoot. No, I really, and I hate, in a layout blind, I hate hunting with a hat on, because I'm really trying to move, and it just is going to be, it just gets in the way 90% of the time.
Josh, let me throw this question up here, and it's kind of off of us a little bit because it's more of a duck hunting question. But everyone always says to use goose floaters. So Theo asks, when using 2 to 4 goose floaters as confidence decoys when duck hunting, are there certain goose notes you can hit that will turn ducks into the spread?
Yeah, and I think this is actually a good question because we've talked to Field and Clay Hudnall about this, and they'll hunt ducks over just a goose spread, and it's like, all right, well, you're hunting ducks over a goose spread. Do you goose call at those ducks if you don't have that many ducks out? Or to Theo's point, if you got a couple out there, is there something you can do with the goose call to help turn those ducks?
I've seen guys do this with like pintails, because a lot of times when you're in areas where there's a lot of specs, pintails are following pretty closely, or around, there's usually an abundance of pintails where there's an abundance of specs. And there's guys that'll sit there and they'll, instead of blowing a duck call, they'll blow a goose or their spec call and give them a couple yodels or clucks or whatever. And it works really, really well. With Canadas, or, with ducks and Canadas, I think that a lot of times your confidence is already a visual. With the Canada goose decoys being out there, I think that there's a lot that can be said to those ducks in the air, that there's already Canadas on the ground. I think maybe just like a couple clucks would probably be sufficient. But I mean, personally, I haven't tried that, so I can't really give a great answer on that. But I know that throwing out those Canada geese with those ducks helps immensely in a lot of areas.
The funny thing about your response there is that it's so situation specific, right? And there's a lot that goes into that question and that answer. And probably the interview that we've done on this show that I refer to back the most in the history of this show is one that we did way, way a long time ago with Sean Stahl. And he just dropped like a million knowledge bombs on us. But one of the ones that he said that always stuck with me is that your call, your decoys, your flag, all of that stuff, they're just tools. And you just use them however you have to get the birds to do whatever you want them to. So it's just the tool. If this one doesn't work, you try the next one. And if that one doesn't work, until you find the right tool for that day that makes it work. And that's kind of, to the point where maybe some days the decoy itself is just the tool. Maybe some days it's a decoy with a little call involved, all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to hear the different questions, the answers on that, because we've asked that to a couple different people over the years, and it's one that everyone sort of agrees is a good confidence thing, but everyone's got a little bit of different take on how to actually use it and deploy it, and probably a lot of that kind of seems to relate to where you hunt the most, I would guess. But I got another good question here that I think from our good buddy David Vandekamp that I'm going to bring up here. And he says, let's say you got a pit with 6 guys, reasonably good callers. How many guys should be calling? And I think that's a good question, because I think everybody that comes to the blind that is a reasonably decent caller probably brings their calls with them. They all throw them on in the morning, and then everybody starts hunting. And it's kind of like, unless there's some sort of guidance, like, does everybody start calling when birds come in? Like, does it matter the size of the flock? Like, sort of, what's your philosophy on that? I mean, obviously you're not going to show up to many blinds where the guys will be like, Kyle, you can keep your calls in your bag today. We got this, right? But I mean, for a lot of guys, there probably is some of that conversation, taking place.
I think the the biggest thing that guys, especially if if they are, I'm reading this question now, if they're reasonably good callers, I think that the first thing that needs to be communicated before birds even start flying is, don't work against each other, because that's 99% of the time that's what happens is guys, it turns into a competition out there, So I think recognizing and establishing, if somebody, say the guy on the far right, whoever it is, sees birds, starts calling, that's the guy that leads everything from that point on. That's the guy that he saw those birds, he initiated conversation with those birds. He's the leader. Everybody needs to fall in line, and work with him. They can't be trying to overstep him. Like, say he's starting to pick up his pace on a goose call, you just start to pick up the pace with him instead of jumping from 50 miles per hour to 88. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the biggest thing is understanding and communicating effectively with those guys that, hey, look, this is how it works. We're all great callers. Let's work together versus working against each other, because that's more detrimental to a hunt than having a pit full of good, full of bad callers. Really, they could all be bad callers, but they all work together, and they're going to kill more birds in that pit than the guys full of good callers. But learning how to work together, I think it's hard to say how much calling should be going on. I think it's best to establish that each flock there's going to be a different leader 90% of the time, and it's essential to fall in line with that leader.
Dan, are you frozen or what's the deal?
Yep. I was frozen for a minute. I was waiting for it to come back.
Oh crap!
It's like,
I don't know if I answered that one poorly or what.
I was like, please do not go black on me right now. Anyway, no, I love watching the Higdon's hunting shows, and you guys just are chock full of great callers in there, and it always sounds so just fluent and so good and not like a competition, and you guys end up always crushing. But bringing up another question here from Nicholas Phillips. When you are calling, do you call to one goose or the whole group? And if it is one goose, I guess which goose are you checking out?
That really, man, each of these questions it's so situational, but at 90% of the time, if they say there's 20 geese in that flock, right? I'm trying to scan as quickly as possible the body language of each of those geese. And as soon as I see one start to, turn a little bit, I'm trying to pick out what goose I'm going to be calling at and the one that I'm going to be communicating with. With specs, it's very easy to pick that one out, because it's a very distinguished note. And you can have that one-on-one conversation with. That's why specs are really fun, in my opinion, to call, because it's way easier to have a one-on-one conversation with those geese. But at the same time, it's just body language when it comes to those Canadas. I'm looking for whatever one starts to either set the wings, slow the wing beats, or turn just a little bit, and that's the goose that I'm calling at.
Yeah.
So say that you have birds just locked up from 150, 200 yards out, and they get to 50 yards and you see one just start to pop out. Like, what are you hitting them with?
Oh man. I mean, usually I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. So if I'm just doing single clucks, like real slow single clucks, look, and one just kind of starts to vary off, I'm going to start maybe hit them with a little bit quicker. Look, to hopefully bring that bird back. Now, if the majority of the birds do it, there's something going wrong. But if one's just kind of like, I don't feel like it, I'll still, try to focus on the majority of them. But at the same time, I'm monitoring what I'm doing and what I'm saying uh, and seeing if I need to reevaluate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I this format is tough because I see a ton of questions that are coming through, and like you said, a lot of them are very situational, right? A lot of them are like, well, I hunt this particular spot and I have this particular situation, and I guess one of the things that I'm always wondering about is like, if you could look back on yourself the first time you picked up a goose call and it started doing this in the beginning, what would you tell yourself now, and with the benefit of hindsight, like, what are some of the things that you really struggled with at the beginning, or were there things that like you spent a lot of time doing that you look back on it now and be like, that was silly, like I don't, whatever. I mean, I think, I guys, and the reason where I'm going with this is, I know personally one of the things I struggled with was I started out with like a polycarb zinc like power clucker or something like that calling, and I always wondered to myself, I was like, man, if I had a better call, would I sound better than what I do on this call? So I spent a lot of time losing confidence because I wasn't sure that the call that I was using was good enough. So maybe talk a little bit about that. And, for guys that are getting started, do you have recommendations on calls that you think are good, or maybe characteristics of calls that would be good for beginners and that kind of thing? And the other thing I would ask is, and I mean, I know I'm piling a ton on you right here, but I'm just kind of word vomiting. When does a guy know it's time to move up? Like, when does that guy who has that first call know, all right, now it's a good time for me to take that next step and get that acrylic or get that short barrel call, whatever the next step is? When do they know when it's time?
Yeah, so we'll start from the very beginning of that master list of questions you hit me with. So, my first Canada Goose call was Buck Gardner Canada Hammer. And, I could barely get it to honk whenever I first started. And the biggest thing that I would recommend to anybody is, it's when it comes down to it, you could line up, once you're proficient on a call, you could line up 100 different calls and you'll be proficient at all of them, right? So you're okay with starting out with a $30 goose call or a $50 goose call or a $150 goose call. Learning how to crawl before you walk before you jog before you sprint is 10 times more important beforehand. And that's where I got kind of caught up in it, because I was at that stage where I was, 14, 15 years old. I'm trying to do what's cool, and man, those guys are blowing $150 calls, and I'm just sitting there barely being able to honk, And so I would work on one thing at a time, one note at a time, no matter what price point of call you have, right? And making sure you can do notes A through Z in the alphabet of the goose vocabulary before going to $150, $200 call. And that's it. I mean, I sell calls for a living. I rely on that to pay the, and that's the honest truth, is that you guys focus on doing one thing at a time, one note at a time, perfecting that note before going on to the next one. Because what will happen is you'll be like, you'll get one note down and you'll have 75% of that note perfected, and you'll hear another note and start doing it. And then all that's going to do is go and create bad habits. And it's going to prohibit you from growing as a caller later on. So you go there, you focus on A, B, C, D, E, and then you go to the next one, right? You focus on A before you go to B, obviously. And then that's whenever, once you get all that down, that's whenever you can look at walking into a store, trying out a call and seeing what call fits you best, right? Because really, man, if you only know how to do A through C, every single call that's $150, you're only going to be able to do A through C. You don't know your capability as a caller until you learn that entire vocabulary, so it's very, very hard to establish what call is going to fit you best by because of your limitations already. You want to be able to do multiple different notes before going and getting that super duper fast call. That's just plain and simple. Try to break it down as best I can, man. That's it. With characteristics of calls, if you're a beginner, you want to try to stay away from the shorter calls because it's taking more manipulation and more being a more advanced caller because it's the call, you're utilizing that call more and shaping notes and everything like that. With a longer call, it's going to be a little bit easier to blow, easier to learn on. That's why most your $30, $40 Canada Goose calls, and that's why every single call company that makes a $150 Goose call makes a big long one. A Zinc made the SR1 back whenever he first started. That's his original Goose call. That's that's the one he started out with. It's because it was easy to blow. It was easy for a guy to transition either from a flute to a short reed, or that was beginning of the short reed to enunciate a honk or a cluck. And that's why every single call company has that. It's because that's the best beginner call a guy can. And then you'll see each call company goes down in size because as the more advanced caller grows, they're going to be like, oh man, well, I started with this call, I'll stick with this company, and then that's the call I grow into. So it's really based, it's mapped out. You start with the longer one, and that's where you grow. That's where you learn A through Z, and then as you advance as a caller, and as you're able to enunciate and everything like that with notes and learn air control, you can move to that shorter call. So that's why guys, you have those long calls and they go to 3 inches long in some companies.
Yeah. I'm going to throw this over to you here in a second, Dan, but I thought it was interesting what you were saying about learning all the vocabulary. Mm-hmm. The second interview we ever did on this show was with Kelly Powers. And the one thing that I remember like it was yesterday interviewing him was we were talking about contest routines. And, for a guy like me to listen to guys like him and you rip through a contest routine, I'm like, man, it just makes my head spin thinking like I have a hard time putting like 2 or 3 notes together, let alone like a 90-second routine or whatever. But he talked about he would chunk it up and he would sit there and blow that 10-15 second piece of it until he got that perfect and could do it, in his sleep, so to speak. And then he'd go on to the next piece but he wouldn't go on to the next section of the routine until he had that one perfected. And I was just like, wow, that to me, that would like really take a long time and a ton of effort. And it's not on that level, but it's a similar concept to what you're saying is, don't try to, play the violin if you've blown into a kazoo a few times, right? It's like, learn follow the steps and kind of chunk it along. And I think that's great advice.
Man, he's one of the most detail-oriented hunters or woodsmen that I know. I mean, everything is precise to the T with that guy for sure. And you're exactly right, man. Whenever I first started working for him, he's sitting there breaking down my routine chunk by chunk by chunk, and he's like, no, we're not moving to this until you get this, right? And that's the same exact mindset as it is with Canada Goose calling. And the biggest thing I can recommend to guys as well is don't settle for being able to be, proficient with A through D, right? Try to learn the whole alphabet because it's only going to help later on. It's only going to, you get in a high pressure area, like you go to Eastern Shore, Maryland, or, even some parts of Pennsylvania or Virginia. I'm sure there's a lot of waterfowlers in those areas, or Minnesota, right? Or do you think that you and the guys competing next to each other, you both sound the same, but as soon as you start whipping out other calling techniques out of the playbook, man, that's a game changer in some situations, especially for birds that are high pressure. It's only going to help you guys later on by learning that entire deal or entire vocabulary.
I agree. It's definitely beneficial to learn all of those. For our listeners or for guys that are just starting out, what is when you go out on a hunt, what is your breakdown of notes? Maybe percentage wise, like are you doing a lot of honks, clucks, double clucks? What should people really start out? What is the A to Z or what is the A to D that might get them really better hunts? The finished birds, I guess.
I kind of look at a few different things as realism and knowing the notes of aggression, because like I said earlier, your geese are extremely aggressive. Double clucks, obviously, double clucks are, that's every time you hear geese, it's two geese talking, high cluck, low cluck. That's hot, that's two geese. Double clucks, I love using a quick spit out in the field, which is it's a spit note, which you all hear it, whether you're out listening to geese or hunting geese. It's that cluh, cluh, cluh. Quick spit's just shortened up. It almost sounds like a cluck, but it's pretty aggressive in terms of goose vocabulary, and it's a great note to really really finish geese at. Like say you've got geese coming at you, and the big geese are notorious for it. Is they're landing short. They're landing at 75 yards instead of 25, outside the decoys, and you need something to pick them up. And you can do that with either a series of set, quick double clucks, quick clucks, or a quick spit. And that quick spit, man, you hit them with that, and it's like they just kind of just keep on coasting, and they'll, eventually, hopefully finish in the decoy spread. Well, that's the number one and number two notes that I'm using out in the field. Early in the year, like September, I'm using just like one cluck or double cluck, and then moans, like really, really hard on the moans, just that oh, because with those young geese, a lot of times, and you guys have experienced this, especially those early residents, man, you can shoot into a flock of geese, hit them with a bunch of moans real quick, and then you can turn the whole flock right around and you have a chance to shoot them again. You just, almost like a pleading note, right? And you can finish those. So typically double clucks, single clucks, and moans early in the year. As the year progresses, I'm trying to get a little bit more advanced, technical, aggressive, and just overall, I guess, yeah, I already said it all. It's technical, advanced, and aggressive and realistic later as the year goes on, because man, a lot of those geese, especially in high pressure areas, they've already heard all that. Like I said, going back to what I said, is you're able to do the entire playbook, right, versus be limited. So as the year progresses, quick spits, moans, double clucks with a moan, or hiccups, I mean, those are all very extremely realistic, aggressive, and effective notes to use. I usually try not to go, I don't do more than that. A note I usually don't ever do is a murmur, and that's just those two geese. I'm sure for all the guys that have watched Bad Grammar, that's a Canada goose. That's like hey, this is, they're on the ground, and this is just my area. I'm just letting you know that I'm over here. It's that, I don't do that typically, because outside of 30 yards, that's very, very faint. You could walk out 30 yards and do it like the Canada geese do it. It's not something that is typically done. Usually if a guy is not as advanced on a goose call, I kind of typically ask him to just do that if we're all team calling, and it's like, all right, stick with that, man. Like you're killing it, dude. You're doing a great job. But so it's one of those where I don't do it because that's not a effective note in the goose field, in my opinion. So yeah, that was a quick run through of those different spots.
There's a question here from Bryce that I don't know if I can bring it in or not. Yeah, there we go. And he's asking you to talk about running traffic when you're not on the X. So I'm curious as to, with the notes that you were just talking about, are there any that you've seen that are typically more successful when you're running traffic? Others that you would kind of stay away from when you're trying to run traffic, or sort of just maybe talk about your general, what you're trying to accomplish when you're trying to traffic, other than just being loud and, that kind of deal.
Typically we all know traffic is you're running flags, you're running loud calling, aggressive calling. But I think it's learning how to exaggerate and accentuate some of those notes. With the quick spits and spit notes, you can really add a lot of emphasis and emotion to it. And I think if you, as a caller, add some more emphasis and emotion to either your double clucks or your spit notes or quick spits, I think that you can get that point across, especially when running traffic. It's not all voice or all noise and visual with running traffic. You can really get their attention by adding, a lot of different emotion into that calling or into your notes and everything like that. And I think that can pay big dividends later on, is just really adding that in there. Because, we on the X, like I said, running traffic is, we all know it. It's flagging, it's calling, it's getting those geese off their flight path, and you are not where they want to be. You're trying to convince those geese to come and land with you, right? So adding that emphasis, adding that emotion into your calling is going to help you, rise above the guys that are in the fields next to you.
How much motion are you putting in when you're running traffic? We have some guys that we hunt with, and they're like, everyone bring a flag, bring 2 flags if you got them. Like they just want all kinds of commotion, and like you said, an uptick in the calling, and that's a given. But are you getting up and really hitting them with a flag?
Yeah. You typically, if I'm running traffic, where I live now, we have very, very, very few Canada geese. But when I lived in Michigan, obviously the guys in Michigan know that there's quite a bit of Canada geese up there. But there's situations where it's like, all right, we've got 6, 7 guys out there in the field. I need every single one of you guys to bring a flag. If you don't have a flag, go buy one. If you don't go buy one, I need somebody else to come and goose hunt with us, because we need somebody to run a flag. Like, it's important, and a lot of times I'll run, you'll see guys wearing black hoodies walking through their spread, just trying to get anything to catch the eye of one of those geese that's going to eventually just do one of those little, the little wing flip deal, just a little bit of change in the course there it can be what everybody's looking for. Everybody's sitting there, 8, 9 guys running flags. That one goose, hey, you got it. I try to start with one guy with flag, and then if it progresses, like we were talking about calling earlier, a flag is a Canada goose call. A Canada goose call is a tool, just like Sean Stahl said. Each of those, they're all tools, and you'll start with your one guy that's flagging, right? He might be flagging and calling. And then all of a sudden you fall in line, and if one guy is calling and flagging while running traffic and it's working, that's fine. That you keep to that. But everybody will see their moment, it's like their aha moment, right? Is, okay, fall in line. Let's go. Let's flag, or that one guy that starts leading is like, all right, let's flag, guys, and he'll start calling guys out in the spread. Hey, Jimmy, call, whatever, it's just, they all fall in line, with flagging. So I typically, you don't need to start out with 8, 9 guys flagging and calling at the same time, but it is nice to be able to have that motion in that spread to catch those eyes, just like hunting ducks. They're looking for that little flash in the spread. So and that's all they need. and you could have one spinner out, you could have 40, and that's what caught their eye.
Yeah. One of the things that as a waterfowl hunter, I've always thought was cool was whenever I go on like a guided hunt or I go to like up to Maryland and watch the competition guys like you guys up on the stage, being around people that are good callers always makes me feel like a better caller just by hearing like the tones and the sounds and the cadence and the way that things are delivered by good callers. I've always felt like makes me a better caller, and I just try to replicate that. Right, I just try to do what I see and hear, and I'm curious, like how much of that, like how much is your progression has been just stuff that you've picked up from being around quality callers, or how much of it was your progress expedited by working directly, with Kile as an example, because I think that is a benefit, at least to me, it's a benefit for going on a hunt with like a guide or something like that. You spend 2 or 3 days in a row in the field with guys that are on the goose call all season long and make their living running it. You're going to learn a thing or two. At least I always have. So I'm curious, like, have you felt that that's been something that's been a significant influence on you throughout your time?
Absolutely. I mean, in competition calling, it's competitive nature. You want to beat the guy that just beat you or sounded better than you. So naturally, you're going to want to become a better caller in the time period between that contest and the next one, and you're always looking for progress. But I mean, it also translates over to Canada goose calling, because like you could go to listen to the live goose calling contest and you hear some dudes that they're flat out. I mean, that sounds like 4 or 5 geese sitting on a golf course fighting, and it just sounds so nasty. So naturally, your interest is piqued, right? To where it's like, all right, I want to sound like that out on a loaf pond or something. You just think of different situations that you can utilize that in. But then hunting with guys that are very, very good callers, proficient callers, you naturally pick that up because you're like, okay, that's working good. That's like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to do that because it's gonna help translate over. Like one of the guys that I work with, Bo, that makes all our turkey diaphragm calls, he can cut so good on a diaphragm turkey call, and it just sounds unbelievable. But then you listen to that, and then you listen to a real hen out in the wild, and she's going right, going crazy. You're just like, yeah, I need to do that, right? So naturally, you pick it. I mean, it is so we don't even have to think about it, and it's just like, yeah, I want to do that, right? So every single guy that's commenting or watching or whatever, they're naturally going to want to get better by being surrounded by people that are more proficient or whatever. So it just, yeah, it's all natural, man. So I agree 100%. You're going to want to get better as a caller on that.
Tell people, tell our listeners about what you try and get going, the calls through Facebook and everything online. It seems, I mean, when you talk about competition calling and just competitions in general, it seems like you're one that just is pushing really, really hard to keep it alive and keep it growing.
Yeah, I mean, so it honestly, it really is one. It hits hard when you see, man, like 4 or 5 people at a goose calling contest, and you talk to Hunter Grounds, or you listen to stories from Kelly, or you remember stories that the late Tim Grounds was telling, and you're like, man, there's 40, 50, 60 callers out there, right? And it's just one of those things that I've taken a lot of pride in perfecting a lot of things that I do. I don't want to see it die. I don't want to see. I 100% think that contest calling only helps you become a better hunter or an outdoorsman, because it really pushes your ability as a caller and a linguist per se, an animal linguist. it only pushes you to become a better one, right? And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that die. I want to see guys enjoy that for a really, really long time and understand like there's totally something that you guys can do in the off season, like in the July, August, September, October, even into October and November in Worlds. Like it's really cool. Like some of the best people I've ever met I met through contest calling. You know, some of the best hunters and guides that I know are I met through contest calling. And honestly, there's about 90% of the guys in the industry today are where they're at now because of contest calling, you know, and like Kelly Powers, Fred Zink, Hunter Grounds, Sean Stahl, Tim Ground. I mean, those guys have all paved the way for all of us waterfowlers because of their contest call. And I just don't. I mean, I just don't want to see it die, man. I love it, and it's exhilarating and just fun. And there's a whole lot of reasons to why I love it, but man, I just want to see it continue and hopefully bring it back to where it's growing and fun for people again, and you know, just have it be all around good time.
Yeah, and we talked to Brady Davis and Matt McCormick here not too long ago, and you know, we were talking about outdoor shows and you know, that kind of stuff, and we had you know, last week or the week before we had Barton Ramsey and Ryan Bassam on. We were talking about outdoor shows, and that was one of the things that I was thinking about, and I thought about you specifically with the calling and with this you know, COVID-19 stuff going on, and if shows are going to close down or not run this year, that's going to have an impact on, you know, the ability to get the contest going. So I know you were doing some virtual stuff, and you know, who knows, you know, maybe that could be, you know, the avenue that opens it up for more people to get involved. And you know, I'm certainly not a contest caliber caller, but I mean, this is like the nostalgia episode. I keep referring to all these old interviews that we did, but I remember talking to Kelly, and I was like, you know, if you gave me if you handed me a guitar and said, I'm going to teach you to play Smoke on the Water, or I can teach you to play Stairway to Heaven, I'd rather play Stairway to Heaven. I'm going to need to learn a lot more to do it, but that's going to make me a better guitar player. If I play Smoke on the Water, yeah, I can say I play the guitar, I play Smoke on the Water, but I'm not the same guitarist that's over there ripping Stairway to Heaven, as an example. So I equate the contest calling very similar to that sort of situation where, yeah, we're all callers, but you know, you guys that run it the way you do are sort of at that elite level that, while I'll probably never be that good, like it's something that I always have a lot of admiration for, and I definitely want to see continue to be a positive influence and voice, you know, for the industry and for the niche.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm there. It's or like your guitar reference, dude. I've never heard it like that, and that's great. I love it, you know. But I've always, you know, I think you've had Phil Conkey on here a few times, and he's said it the same way. Is like, you don't see archery hunters not practicing shooting, right? Why don't you? I mean, or it's the same exact instance, you know. So hopefully we're gonna try to do a couple different things, man, and try to grow it and bring it back to what it is, and maybe get there one day. We'll see.
So I know we've held you quite a while tonight, but is there one thing above anything else that you see people making a large mistake with their calling, to where it could be an easy fix? Anything you see at shows, or they just breathe in the wrong way, or they, you know, anything that you could throw out to the listeners?
My biggest thing is, and this actually started whenever I was just getting into archery shooting, is the guy that was showing me how. He's like, once you get tired, put it up, because what's going to happen is you're going to go and create bad habits, and that's going to hurt you more in the long run. It's just like working out or anything like that. Once you get fatigued, you start compensating different muscle groups or stuff like that, and it's going to in turn hurt you in the long run. Whenever you're trying to become a better caller, if you start to get frustrated or start to get tired, just put it up, come back to it, because it's going to be, you can always start back where you were, right? And always go into it. If man, the amount of times I've seen guys just put their calls up, never touch them again because they've gotten so frustrated, been calling for hours and hours and hours trying to get better and better and better, and then just get so fed up with it they just finish out. The biggest bit of advice is just put it up and come back, and you can always work on it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I certainly was guilty of that when I started out, and even now, I probably developed some bad habits because I just didn't know when to quit. But as Dan mentioned, we've kept you longer than we intended to this week, but we love having you on the show and love following you on social media. Why don't you go ahead and plug your Instagram and all that kind of stuff? Like I said, I was checking it out before we got on here, and I think you have a ton of great content. So why don't you make sure everybody can follow you on social media?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. The Instagram there is _ Kile, Kile Jones. And, you said it earlier, is there's a lot of guys that are kind of nervous or whatever about calling and asking questions. I try to just help as many people as I possibly can, because it's hunting. It's what we love to do. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the help of other people, and so if you have a question, whether it's calling, hunting, whatever, I'll be more than willing to help anybody that wants to ask. And don't ever feel like you can't ask a question about hunting or calling or anything like that.
Awesome. Dan, you got anything else you want to hit this evening?
No, man, there's tons of great info there, a lot of pro tips, and like you said, we appreciate your time and always enjoy having you on, man.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you to everyone in the listeners group who stuck with us the entire time and asked a lot of great questions. This episode will be out on iTunes in audio form, and we'll also have the video up on YouTube for anybody that wants to check it out afterward. So again, Kyle, appreciate it, man. Always enjoy it. And I don't know if you got any more turkey tags left, but for the population's sake, might be time to put it up for a minute. I think they're a little frustrated.
Gas pedal.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.